Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are staying safe. Hope everything's good wherever you are. Smash the like button on this video. Let's get this video as many likes as possible. Guys, this video is going to be broken down into two parts. I'm going to talk about two things, two different parts here. I'm going to talk about the fight that's been announced recently, Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields first, and then I'm going to go on to talk about how Joe Rogan said a 45-year-old Floyd Mayweather can still beat the current prime Canelo Alvarez. Was his comment taken out of context? What he said, was it taken out of context? So guys, firstly, I want to talk about Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. What a fight, what a great fight, undisputed fight. We've got a two-time Olympic gold medalist and a 12 world, she won 12 world titles. She's undisputed in 2 weight classes. I think she's looking to be undisputed in her 3rd weight class. Clarissa, a phenomenal talent, a gifted fighter. A fighter who I think is a special talent. Before I get down into the breakdown of this fight, and by the way, Savannah Marshall, a knockout artist, a very good boxer as well. That's a very tough fight for it's a very tough fight for Clarissa. I think it's going to be her hardest fight. I think the hype around this fight is justified. I think this is a proper great fight. I think and the reason why I'm doing a video on it, because I am interested in this fight. As I explained in the video earlier, there's not a lot of fights that I'm always interested in. I'm really interested in this one. I think there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot of beef there. I think there's a lot that really gets me curious, gets me excited about this fight, because I think it's going to be a barnstormer. I really do. I think it's going to be a cracker. I think it's going to be one for the ages. I generally do. I think it's one of the greatest female fights of all time. I think the hype, the attention, I think this is one of the best female fights. I think it's bigger. I think it's a bigger and better fight than Katie Taylor and Clarissa. Potentially could end up in a knockout as well. I think if the knockout comes, it comes at their hands. Actually, I'll say that I think it goes points. I think both girls are defensively responsible enough. I think Clarissa, I think if it does end before 12 rounds, I would favor Savannah to get the KO. But this is a proper fight. This is a proper fight. Forget the female, forget all of that. This is a proper boxing fight. You know, men, female, whatever. I'm looking forward to this fight. Hence why I'm doing a video on it. I think this is going to be a really top draw fight. Top draw. I think it's anyone. I think it's a 60-40 fight in Clarissa's favor. Even though the bookies have, I think, Savannah the favorite in this fight, which I'm not surprised, because I think Savannah's beaten Clarissa before, although it was a Clarissa that was young. Savannah's a knockout artist, and she can box, so I can understand why the bookies are favoring her. One thing I will say is that there's too many people in boxing that push agendas. And what I mean by that is, you need to learn to respect sportsmen and women, especially in boxing, because I don't think we seem to do that. I don't think we seem to give these fighters enough respect. And I don't have a problem with Brits backing their own, Brits backing Brits, but don't belittle Clarissa because she's American. Start belittling her just because you want your fighter to win. That's fair enough. There's nothing wrong with that, backing your own. There's no problem with that. Just don't start belittling another fighter from another country. There's no need for that. There's no need for that. It's rubbish. There's no need for it at all. We need, as sports fans, we need to start appreciating, especially boxing fans, we need to start appreciating, you know, fighters from all backgrounds, fighting from all countries. Because at the end of the day, we watch this sport because we love them. We don't care who it is fighting. We could get scrapped between a Puerto Rican and whoever. It doesn't really matter. Or a guy from Japan and a guy from Argentina. If they were to fight and give us a great fight, we appreciate it, because we like to see great fights. And that's what we're about. That's what we boxing fans are about. So we need to start appreciating. And listen, I get we all support people from our own country, our own background. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't belittle another fighter to make your fighter look better. You know, I hate it when people like Clarissa have such great achievements and people try to belittle her just to make Savannah look better. Savannah's won 1 world title. When Clarissa says, what have you done in boxing compared to me? It's true. It's true. Savannah's nowhere near as accomplished and as decorated as Clarissa Shields. Give Clarissa her credit and respect. Because if you say, oh, well, there's not much depth in women's boxing, okay, then how come no one else has done what Clarissa has done then? If it's so easy to do what Clarissa's done, then why hasn't other females achieved what she's achieved? So this is the problem I have with some fans. Just that, you know, the biased nature of certain fans. Give these fighters respect. They deserve a lot more respect. You know, then they get, in my opinion, I feel like they don't get enough credit, you know, like Clarissa. She, you know, fair enough, she's not a ticket seller or whatever, but she's still a great fighter. She's still a historical fighter, what she's done. And when she says she's a GOAT, people say, well, oh, that's self-proclaimed. Well, it's not self-proclaimed when you won 2 Olympic gold medals and 12 world titles. That's not self-proclaimed. She has a legit argument for being the GOAT. She has a legit argument. Whether you think it's Katie Taylor or you think it's Ann Wolfe or you think it's Layla Ali, she has a legit argument as being a GOAT. She's probably achieved more than Katie Taylor. So, at the end of the day, when people disrespect, it really irritates me when people disrespect. Like, look at what she's achieved as a female. She's achieved great things. Give her the credit, give her the respect of what she's done in the game. You know, and I just feel like a lot of fight fans don't seem to, and that really irritates me at times. But, you know, it's a great fight. Most importantly, it's a great fight. It's one that we're all going to watch. It's going to be interesting to see who pulls it off. I think it's going to be very exciting. I do. I think it's going to be a great fight. And I don't care whether it's a female fight or whatever. I'm still going to be glued and watching it. And now I want to move on and talk about Joe Rogan's comment. Joe Rogan said that he feels a 45 Mayweather. I think he might have been blown out of context, what he said. Let's see what he says here. So basically, he was having a conversation between Rogan and Simpson, who would triumph in a rematch. The guest stated Floyd Mayweather fought young Canelo and maybe knock Canelo out, but I still believe he would beat him. Joe Rogan says, I think so too. It's hard now because Canelo's a tank. He is so big. You would have to get him down to a manageable weight. He was 152 when he fought Floyd. Floyd was very smart. He made him cut below the 154 limit because he struggled even to get to 154. So Floyd made him cut 2 extra pounds. It was very sneaky. So that's what Joe Rogan had to say. And look, this is, I don't know in what context it's made. The article's not long enough and it doesn't have, it's not in enough depth. But there's no way a 45-year-old Floyd Mayweather would beat Canelo Alvarez. Firstly, the fight couldn't happen because Floyd is too small. Floyd fought at 147. Canelo now fights at 168. Even if you look at 160, Floyd is too small. He can't fight at that weight. So there's no way they can fight each other. It would be ridiculous at 45 years of age. Floyd wouldn't be able to beat Canelo. He'd get battered. You know, Canelo would knock him out at this point in his career. 45-year-old Floyd Mayweather. Do I think the best Canelo Alvarez beats the best Floyd? No. If they were fighting at the same weight, no, I think Floyd would beat him. But a 45-year-old Floyd Mayweather does not beat this current Canelo Alvarez. If they fight at a weight where Canelo's not totally drained, you know, Canelo beats him. You're not going to, 45-year-old don't beat a young in his prime. You know, Floyd doesn't look that great anymore. He'd get badly wiped out against Canelo at this point in Canelo's career. But a prime Floyd Mayweather fights Canelo at any weight class. I mean, not any weight class, but a weight class which is manageable for him. Stylistically, Floyd would always have Canelo's number, unfortunately. Canelo doesn't have what Floyd is just special. His ring IQ, his boxing brain, his footwork, his hand speed. Floyd was just complete, unfortunately. Canelo has issues with footwork, and he has issues with, you know, good guys with footwork like Floyd. Floyd is different, you know, he was very sharp, very fast, had very good defense. You know, his defense was even better than Canelo's. Yeah, he could fight on the back foot, fight on the front foot. Floyd was just a master, and it was very hard to penetrate Floyd's defense. And Canelo has become a better pressure fighter since he fought Floyd, so that would be a test. But again, I just think that the way Canelo fights, I think Floyd would outbox him. Even this version, I don't think any version of Canelo beats Floyd Mayweather, depending on what weight, of course. That's what I mean. It's not a practical match because Canelo, what's his prime? 160, 168? Mayweather can never fight at those weights. So it's unrealistic. If Mayweather, even in his prime, was to go up to 168, he'd lose. He's too small. You know, so, yeah, for me, Floyd Mayweather would have Canelo's number stylistically. And I think the Bivol fight showed that. But I think now Floyd Mayweather at 45 could not beat Canelo Alvarez. I think he must have been talking about stylistically. Surely they can't actually think that if they were to rematch that Floyd would actually beat Canelo, because you'd have to be a casual, because there's no way they can even fight, because the weight class and the weight difference is so much at this point that it's not even a practical fight. It's like talking about Manny Pacquiao fighting Golovkin. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's not a practical fight. There was a point that actually Manny Pacquiao and Golovkin was being talked about, which was ludicrous. I actually thought at the time was absolutely ridiculous, because there's no way Manny Pacquiao could have fought Golovkin. Golovkin's just too big. That would have actually been dangerous for Manny Pacquiao, fighting a Gennady Golovkin. People actually thought Pacquiao could win. They thought he could outbox him and move from side to side and, you know, use his fast feet and fast hands to outbox, but no chance. You know, Manny would have got hurt in that fight. The same in this. Like, this is a different situation, because Canelo was fighting at lower weight classes when he was younger. But it's just not a practical fight. It's not a practical fight. It's a fight where I think Floyd stylistically has a horrible style for Canelo. But it's not a fight that we can match him up prime for prime, because prime, Canelo fights at 168, 160. Floyd prime fights at 135. You know, 147 was not Floyd's prime even. So, yeah, that's just my opinion. Some people will have a different spin on things. That's my take. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.